Good evening, everyone. This is Denise from Dobby Books. So, it's Monday. It's the 28th. I didn't record this Saturday because I had a lot going on. There's only 2 weeks left in the semester. So I've really just been, I guess, just doing everything to try to get this done. Today, I went to the library for a few hours with the goal of finishing my capstone essay, just getting that done so I could move on to the next thing. And I think I may have done that. Yay! So now I've got to focus on putting together my page of the capstone website. I have to put that together. There's templates and whatnot, but I've never done anything like that. So it has this level of anxiety for me. And in addition to that, I have to create a poster, and first I have to do it online, and then it gets, printed out. That's something I've never done before either. So yeah, so I think now that I've gotten the essay out of the way, essentially, with that I can work on the other two things. And I just have the historiography essay to get done. Now we're all on the same page. We aren't. The rest of the class didn't really start this until maybe a week or two ago. It's about 15 pages. It's sort of a comparative thing, and I'm going to be writing up my outline tomorrow, pulling the sources, getting those sources uh, in the different categories on my outline. That type of thing is what I'll be doing tomorrow. And for my last class, my YA class, they gave us three options: a creative project, a teaching project, or a literary criticism essay. And I'm taking that last one. It's the easiest one for me to do. I'm an English major. What the heck, right? I'll just do that. So that's where I am. And today was the first day I actually had some time to get this, to sit down with all of you and go over what I'm reading and a couple of books that I got this week. So let's get started. So, when I was in my YA class last week, where we all were reading a chosen book, and mine was Doll Bones, as I went over last week with you. Well, my classmate chose another book, and the storyline so interested me. I thought, wow, I think I really want to read that book. It really is a beautiful story, sort of a I'm gathering it's a tearjerker because that's the first word that came to my mind, but it's just so tender. Let me read you what the back of the book says. The first book ever to win both the Carnegie Medal for Literature and the Kate Greenaway Medal for Illustration. The monster showed up after midnight, as they do. But it isn't the monster Connor's been expecting, the one from the nightmare he's had nearly every night since his mother started her treatments. The one with the darkness and the wind and the screaming. This monster is something different, something ancient, something wild, and it wants the truth. This is the book, A Monster Calls, by Patrick Ness, and the illustrations are by Jim Kay. And if I'm not mistaken, Jim Kay is the same illustrator for the Harry Potter series. I may be wrong, but that name rings a bell. But look at this cover. Wow. That's a tree. I just, everything about this book just so fascinated me. I'm going to be reading this one, like right away, TBR, reading this one. And I know it doesn't have a happy ending, but it does have a lot of comfort. And the tree is instrumental in helping this young boy deal with his grief and his anxiety, his fears. I think it's going to be a beautiful read. And the next one that I discovered by accident when I was looking for A Monster Calls is a book. I walked past the religion section at Barnes and Noble on my way out, and my eyes just sort of glance over things, and there was the Eastern religions section, and I saw familiar titles, and as my eyes are going over things, I noticed this one book, and it just seemed to not fit there. It looked like a children's book, and I pulled it off the shelf, and it's entitled "The Dog Who Followed the Moon." And it's this beautiful, like almost like a picture book quality. I loved the illustration on the cover. I thought, oh, that looks just beautiful. I love that. You see the two animals there? This book is by James Norbury, and I'm going to read you a snippet from the back. There are times when we have done everything we can do. Then we must learn to step back and allow the universe to play out in all in its unfathomable wonder. Deep in the mountain forests, a young pup named Amaya wanders lost and alone until an aging wolf rescues her from a terrifying encounter with his vicious pack. To try and reunite Amaya with her parents, the unlikely pair embark on a journey to follow the moon. Eerie woods, forgotten cities, and other obstacles await Amaya and the wolf on their adventure. As they make their way through the wilderness, the two learn profound lessons about love, sacrifice, and the importance of embracing change. And I don't know about all of you, but for me, I am a big believer in guidance coming my way when something's on my mind, when I'm troubled about things, or when I just will kind of look up and say, I need some answers. Right? And I've always believed that that guidance comes, whether it's through people, things, events, words I may hear, something I may catch in print. I believe that guidance comes. And I think my eyes scanning over these shelves as I was walking past, you know, caught onto this book. And it really was a response to my worries and my anxieties that I've been having lately. And I think this was an answer for now. And I'm going to be reading this right away. So I'll let you know how it goes. And the last book I got was at the checkout counter. So all three of these books happened in the same shopping trip to Barnes and Noble. And this one was at the counter, and there were a few books on the counter. Sometimes you'll find that when you go to Barnes and Noble, perhaps any bookshop, where they have some books they sort of want to promote. And there were 4 or 5 books on the counter, and the cashier pulled up this one. Maybe she saw me looking at it, I don't know. And she asked me if I'd be interested, and I flipped it over and read the back. And just that little snippet that I read, I said, yeah, I want this one. It's entitled Olivetti by Allie Millington. And it's such a cute and unique story. Let me read you one little part here. It says, being a typewriter is not as easy as it looks. Surrounded by books, notorious attention hogs, and recently replaced by a computer, Olivetti has been forgotten by the Brindles, the family he's lived with for years. The Brindles are busy humans, apart from 12-year-old Ernest, who would rather be left alone with his collection of Oxford English dictionaries. Once a collector of words, now Olivetti only collects dust. So it's such a cute story. I couldn't resist. So this is the 3rd book that I got. Okay, now on to the books that I'm currently reading. I'm continuing reading along with Marilyn Maya Mendoza, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. I'm now about halfway through, and the 2 things that have happened in this book that I've chosen to talk about, the first one is their Aunt Sissy got banished because an incident happened, and I hope I didn't cover this in my last recording. But Sissy works in various manufacturing jobs, and she'll get laid off, and she'll find another job, etc. But at one of her jobs, I think one of the things that they made were condoms, and they make these little kits, if you will, in these lovely little tin boxes, probably about the size of a cigarette thingy. I don't know what, a cigarette pack. And it's very pretty, it's very ornate, very decorative. And Sissy happened to have one in her purse. And she was with the children at their apartment one day looking after them because her sister Katie was working. And Sissy loved to hang out with the kids. And during that time that she was with them, she had put her purse in front of them to keep them busy, to kind of kill the time. And they found this pretty little box inside her purse. And she was a little hesitant, but she said, "You can play with it, but just don't open it." And they didn't open it. They played with it and whatever. And then Sissy had to leave, and they really wanted to continue playing with the box. And so she made them promise not to open the box. They could continue playing with it. And she would come back for it. Well, what ends up happening is, children are just way too curious, and they opened the box, but they didn't understand the contents that they were looking at. And what they ended up doing, out of sheer boredom, is they ended up tying the items that were in the box to string, making a little chain, and then they hung it out their window. And their dad happened to stop by, a couple of hours later, and he saw this hanging out their window and realized what it was. So when Katie, their mother, came home later that day, the children's father, Johnny, spoke to his wife, and they made the decision that they had to banish Sissy. She was a bad influence on the children because Sissy was just a bad girl. So the children don't get to see her for a while. But eventually Sissy's allowed back into their life, whether that's a few months later or a year later, who knows. So that was one exciting incident. The second one is Francie is now attending a school in a very nice neighborhood. She and her father were able to finagle a way to get Francie enrolled in the school, even though she doesn't live in that neighborhood. And it's such a lovely school compared to the one she went to in her neighborhood. In the school for the poor children, the teachers didn't want to be there. The students didn't want to be there. There was favoritism. Just awful experiences. Why even go to school if you're going to deal with stuff like that? And the difference with these teachers at the new school is that they're very kind and they're very patient and they're very encouraging. And even though there are children there who don't dress as nice, everybody is treated as equally as possible. And this is so wonderful for Francie. And this speaks volumes. It really does, because this is something that never gets old, right? It's treating students like they're important and being as supportive as we can be. And all of us having a sign in our classroom that says, "Everyone's welcome here." So that's another part of the book that I enjoyed a lot. So, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. And the next one that I'm continuing to read is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Or Rowell. One day I will learn what the proper pronunciation of her last name is. And I'm about a third of the way through. And let me see. So, Catherine and her sister Wren are identical twins. Catherine is adjusting to college life better. She's gone out a few times with her roommate Reagan and Reagan's boyfriend Levi. Levi is a sweetheart. I have no idea what he's doing with Reagan. Levi, I think, is attracted to Kathy, and he finds excuses to show up at the dorm room, and he asks her to read her stories that she's written in the fan fiction website. He's always there for her. He's a gentleman for her. He's a real friend. And she is coming out of her shell more. She's going out to the dining hall to eat. She meets with her sister Wren fairly regularly, but you can see that Wren really is distancing herself from Catherine. There's more going on there. I'm going to find out as I move forward in the book. And the big thing that's been happening is that a little background here. Catherine and Wren's mother left when they were little. And I believe it's now something like 10 years later. And she wants to reconnect with the girls. Well, Catherine is absolutely opposed to doing that. She says, no, absolutely not. And she finds out that her sister Wren has already been speaking with their mother and has agreed to meet her for lunch. And this is such a betrayal to Catherine. She's just really struggling to deal with that. And when she goes home for Thanksgiving, she and her father end up spending Thanksgiving alone because Wren has decided to spend it with their mother, and she ended up staying the night at her mother's house. So it was not a very pleasant Thanksgiving, but there's something interesting that's going to come of this, I know. So that's where I am there. Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. And the other books that I've been not meandering through, but reading as much as I can I have not touched at all in the last week. With stuff I had to, that I was really trying to get done at school, and just really wanted to keep up with my favorites right now. That's all I've gotten done. So that is it, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will be seeing you in just a few days. I love you all. Take care.